So FYI, I will start the streaming in Spanish.
Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
Okay, Paul, please begin.
Okay. Good evening. As always, before we get started, we'd like to alert our Spanish-speaking viewers that we are broadcasting a translated version of this news briefing. Jose?
Buenas tardes. Agradecemos a la comunidad latina por acompañarnos hoy. Esta actualización se está transmitiendo en vivo por nuestro canal de YouTube con interpretación al español. Para escuchar la versión en español, puede usar el link de YouTube que se incluyó en la descripción de esta publicación en Facebook. Gracias. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you again, all of you, for joining us for another of our joint news briefings with the County of Sonoma, the City of Santa Rosa, and CAL FIRE. My name is Paul Gullickson, Communications Manager for the County of Sonoma, and this is our update for Thursday, October 1st at 5 p.m. The focus of these updates, once again, is the western portion of the glass fire, which swept from Napa County into Sonoma County late Sunday night and has now consumed more than 56,000 acres, and at last report was 5% contained. As we enter day 5 of this firefight, it's a time of nervousness as we begin another red flag warning, which started at 1 p.m. today and is expected to last until 6 a.m. on Saturday. The heat advisory for our area also has now been extended until Friday night, creating some challenging conditions for those on the front line of this fire. For more on the status, let's begin with Deputy Chief Information Officer for this incident for CAL FIRE, Jonathan Cox.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for having me. Just a little bit of an update on this incident. I'll start a little bit higher at the 30,000 foot elevation. Currently, there's 23 major fires burning across the state, the glass fire being one of the top priorities at this point due to the number of people evacuated as well as the threat of both structures and businesses. With that, we can confirm since August 15th that 3.9 million acres of California has burned in a short amount of time. For point of reference, the last highest year on record was about 1.5 million acres. And there's a high likelihood we'll be over the 4 million mark before the month is through, unfortunately. With that, there's 17,000 firefighters battling fires across the state. Obviously, about 2,000 of those are here on the incident in Napa and Sonoma County. We have 118 aircraft. Yesterday alone, we dropped 80,000 gallons of retardant on this fire between the two counties. But obviously one of the biggest impediments we have is the visibility because of the smoke, which is not only the health hazard, but also impedes our operations to actually be effective with our air fleet. Currently across the state, there continues to be about 86,000 homes that are threatened. About 24,000 of those are here locally between the two counties. And additional evacuations are obviously still occurring on this incident, driven by this red flag event that we're seeing throughout the area. A couple notable items not related to Sonoma County, but related to the incident is some of the evacuation orders today included portions of Napa County and the closure of Highway 29 between Napa County and Lake County. There's no current evacuations on in Lake County itself, but that road was closed due to the fire activity impeding upon it. And we also saw quite a bit of activity along the eastern flank of this fire down towards the community of Angwin. We will release our next update with the next facts at 7 p.m. tonight. Our damage inspection teams are out there and we anticipate the number of damaged and destroyed structure count to go up. So the next update that we can expect from them and from the rest of the incident management team will be at 7 o'clock. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Paul.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Indeed, 4 million acres for the state of California is a very ominous record, and that's pretty stifling. For more on the glass fire, we're going to go to CAL FIRE Division Chief Ben Nichols. Ben.
Thank you. So this evening, as expected, the winds are starting to come into the area. Unfortunately, we started off the day prior to the winds arriving with an increase in fire activity in the east zone that was giving firefighting resources a run for their money. And we started off the morning with structured defense around Angwin, Old Lolly Toll Road, and Spring Mountain in the east zone. Luckily, we haven't experienced that same activity here in the west zone. Excuse me if there's too much background noise. I'm here at the Sonoma County EOC. But for the start of the day here in Sonoma County, things are looking well. As we enter into the period of the red flag here, obviously our concerns are with that northwest wind, the perimeter in the Sugarloaf State Park area. If that fire gets across the line that we have established down there, it's going to create a much larger area that we're going to have to fall back to capture the ridges that we need to contain this fire. So that's our largest concern here in the west zone today. However, the prevailing winds are blowing the fire's edge back in on itself out in the Sharp Road, Gates Road area, and crews are continuing to reinforce the control lines that we have out there to ensure that we hold that for the duration of the fire. The other item I have for you, the ray of good news out of this disaster is that the 5% containment that we have on the fire is the area that extends across the backside of Rincon Valley, Skyhawk, across Channel Drive and over towards Spring Lake. So crews are making great headway in the low country over here on the east side of Santa Rosa and are aggressively patrolling the area along the Highway 12 corridor to make sure that there's no hot spots in and around those homes so we can minimize the impact to the community. End of report.
Thank you, Ben. For further updates on the Sonoma County front, let's go to Santa Rosa Fire Chief Tony Gosner. Chief, thanks for being with us as always.
You bet. Good evening, everyone. Just a quick update for the Santa Rosa side. Both Jonathan and Ben gave a great overview. I'll concentrate just on the Santa Rosa side and a little bit of county information. So we have a task force, a structure group that's patrolling the Oakmont area as well as the Highway 12 area. As Ben mentioned, they are there to put out any hot spots that may pop up with this wind. The last thing we want is a secondary ignition to any structures after the fire front has gone through. So crews have been doing that from day one, but we continue to do that as we know that the winds are going to cause other issues. Annandale State Park, I know people are worried about that. I will tell you that there's a good amount of crew in there. They have a lot of hose on the ground and are aggressively mopping up that area to make sure that the wind doesn't create issues for us in any part of our community from Annandale Park. And last thing I'd like to, well, not the last thing, the next fire thing I'd like to mention is that the county has, they gave the fire service a pot of money for upstaffing. So thank you, Sonoma County, for that. And we use it for all red flag upstaffing events. This is one of those events where it's a 2-day long upstaffing event. We are fortunate enough to squeeze out one task force out of all of the departments in the Sonoma County area. So there's 5 engines with a leader, and their sole purpose is to augment any initial attack fire to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of resources and we put that fire down as quick as possible before it gets to be a big fire. So the last thing we need is another big fire. We already got our hands full with this. And then to tie it off, the red flag warning is in effect until Saturday morning, October 3rd. So it's about 48 hours of red flag warnings. That means everyone needs to pay attention, be aware of what's going on. For the latest information about the glass fire and updates within the city of Santa Rosa, you can go to srcity.org/glassfire. And any additional updates for fire-related information is available on Facebook at Santa Rosa FD and on Instagram and Twitter at Santa Rosa Fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Now let's go to Sergeant Juan Valencia of the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office for an update on our evacuation zones. Juan?
Good evening. Staffing at the Sheriff's Office remains the same. We're on an emergency schedule. So we have 50 deputies basically doing proactive patrol in all the evacuation zones, making sure all your property is safe. Want to remind everybody, as everybody else has been stating, there is a red flag warning through Saturday. So what does that mean? That just be ready, have a bag ready in case more evacuations could possibly happen, given the wind and fire activity. We want to remind people and ask people to be prepared. Sign up for Nixle and SoCo Alert. Keep phones charged and close by. Try to at least have a half tank of gas, if not a full tank of gas. Pack valuables. Remember, if you hear the high-low siren, it's time to go. And also, if you feel unsafe, evacuate. Don't wait to be told to evacuate. To this day, we've made 8 arrests of people entering or being in the area that's under an evacuation order. I'd like to remind you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for updates and information, and also make sure to take care of yourselves and your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. And also from the law enforcement front, we have Santa Rosa Police Chief Ray Navarro. Chief?
Thank you, Paul. Not a lot has changed. I am still pleased to report that we have not had any arrests for any looting or intent to loot. We are doing well in that regard. We have had some people trying to get into the evacuation zones. So I want to remind everybody that evacuation orders means that it is unlawful to enter those particular areas. So please remember that. When people do enter, it takes up our resources and it becomes very difficult to address other emergencies that are going on in the area and within our city. If you're in the area, do not remove any barricades. That will present a significant traffic safety issue for us. Don't park outside and walk in. So it is unlawful to either walk in and walk around these evacuated areas or drive into these areas. And please don't demand to be let in to the evacuated areas. So our officers are doing their job right now. They're trying to keep you safe, and they're trying to keep our public safety workers safe by keeping those areas open. We are continuing our increased staffing and patrols with the assistance of mutual aid from the San Francisco Police Department and the San Francisco Sheriff's Department in those mandatory evacuation zones in the surrounding areas. Currently, there are no changes to the existing evacuation orders for Santa Rosa. Right now, we have 12,925 residents who are under the evacuation order, and we have 22,631 community members who are under the evacuation warning areas. We just ask people to continue to follow our website for the latest evacuation information, and you can find that at srcity.org/evac updates. You can also, we also ask people to follow us on our social media accounts, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And again, I want to thank the public for their patience and heeding the orders to stay out of those areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Much appreciated. And now let's go to Christina Rivera, our Acting Emergency Operations Chief for today. Give us an update on the emergency, what's happening at the EOC. Christina?
Thank you, Paul. This is Christina Rivera, Assistant County Administrator, serving the community today as your Emergency Operations Director. Thanks for this opportunity to repeat over and over again. It cannot be said enough times. We are under red flag conditions. We must remain alert in this red flag conditions. As Chief Gosner said, is still about 40 hours of maintaining alertness. And here at the Sonoma County Emergency Operations Center, we are tracking to make sure that our full service shelters are fully equipped. They're completely staffed. We want to let our public know that we have consolidated our resources to better serve you into the Santa Rosa and the Petaluma Beds building shelters. We have plenty of capacity. As of 2 p.m. today, we had about 100 individuals, and that still gives us about a good 700 capacity in order to help and assist those who will need to get some services or get some information. And of course, let's not forget that along with our family members come those of the four-legged kind, maybe sometimes two-legged, it could be a chicken. So I would like to remind the public that we do are providing services for large animals at the fairgrounds. And also we are, the Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds are helping us and assisting us also with animals. So thank you for that capacity. It's a valuable asset because the four-legged members of our family are very important to stay with us. And while we're staying alert, we are also looking to the future and looking to repopulation, looking to assisting our neighbors and our residents to get back to their homes when it's safely to do so, and or assisting also the fact that there will be some burn areas, hopefully soon, where folks can go in and assess their properties. Given that upcoming stage of this disaster, we are ready to assist our residents in opening what we call a community point of this dispensation of materials. So you're going to also hear them as C-pods. And tomorrow we are planning to open one at the Sequoia Elementary School. It'll be starting at 3 p.m. Residents can come there and get basic materials so that they have right protective equipment should they be allowed back into the burn areas. So we want to make sure that you know that is fully ready to be activated as soon as appropriate. We're also planning a second site at the Sonoma Valley Regional Parks when it's appropriate, and should the fire conditions not make that a challenge, that will be also ready for our community. And finally, back into that theme of looking into the future, looking into recovery, we are finalizing our logistics and coordinating very closely with the city of Santa Rosa to open a local assistance center. In the location that is being programmed at this time is the Maria Carrillo High School. With that is the end of the report. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Christina. For more from the county perspective, let's go to Susan Gorin, Chair of the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. Chair Gorin.
Good afternoon. Here I am wearing my seatbelt. I'm in transit to my evacuation home in Sonoma Valley. Thank you to all of our incredible firefighters, CAL FIRE, Santa Rosa Fire, certainly the folks from the county law enforcement. You awe me and inspire me about all of the cooperation and collaboration that we're seeing in action to safeguard our residents, to alert them, communicate with them, and to save the structures. It's pretty amazing what structures we have been successful in saving. And also communicating with the folks why it's important to heed your warnings about staying away, staying out of the evacuation zones. This fire is still active. It's unstable. I know that Christopher Godley was meeting with Kathy Capriola and other folks in Sonoma Valley. If in fact the winds pick up significantly, they are worried that the flames could come down from Sugarloaf and spread even farther. Please have your cell phones charged on with your alert systems already signed up. just in case. I think the possibility is remote, but please heed Sgt Valencia and everyone else about packing your car, gassing it up, faced out to the street with your important papers, because you do not want to have to respond on the spur of the moment about what you need to pack if in fact that happens, that you need to evacuate. So we're anxious, I'm anxious to help everyone get the information that they need, the kits that they need to go back into the fire zones. Thank you, Christina, for recognizing that so far Highway 12 is closed, and we do need 2 locations for the residents to acquire the information to get back into and looking through their home sites. Hopefully their homes are still standing, but we do have a lot of devastation, and I hope we get Highway 12 reopened quickly so that we can access the local assistance center and the FEMA assistance center as needed early next week, perhaps Monday. So thank you all, and thank you to my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors for visiting the evacuation centers, continuing to broadcast over social media all of the important information of the fires. And Mayor Schwedhelm, we are one family. So thank you so much for being part of this extended family.
Thank you, Supervisor Gorin. And now from the city, more on the city perspective, let's go to Santa Rosa Mayor Tom Schwedhelm. Tom, grateful to have you here.
Thanks for having us and continuing to do this. I'm going to repeat a lot of the information that others have said. And I know Jonathan talked at one of our earlier briefing about people want to help. What can you do to help? I'm going to ask that you contact 5 or more of your neighbors to spread this information that we've already heard today. So take action. As Jonathan said, fire service and the men and women fighting the fires have enough resources, but take the proactive thing to prepare yourself in case we have to evacuate. So with that, especially with the red flag warning and with the heat, now is the time to remain vigilant and be prepared. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to receive emergency alerts. We've repeated this time and time again, but still there are some folks that have not. So I'm asking people to actively contact your neighbors, specifically ask them these questions. Have they done it? Review the city's alert and warning systems information at srcity.org/know-your-alerts. Additionally, make sure you know your designated evacuation zones in advance. Use the address lookup tool at srcity.org/evac zones. Again, contact 5 or more of your neighbors to make sure that they've done this. And then lastly, as a reminder, Santa Rosa residents who have been allowed back into their homes may place an extra bag of garbage at no additional cost next to their service bins if tomorrow is your regularly scheduled collection day for removal. This is a special service allowance to help residents who have lost power to dispose of spoiled food. And I'm hoping many additional residents will have the opportunity to utilize this feature in the coming days. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mayor. As one who cleaned out his refrigerator last night, it's a service I really appreciate, so thank you. Okay, I think we're going to go to questions from the media, and we have any that from our audience who submitted them. But before we do, I'd like to go to Jose for another reminder of our Spanish-speaking viewers. Jose?
Si nos acaba de acompañar, gracias. Esta actualización está transmitiéndose en vivo por nuestro canal de YouTube con interpretación al español. Para escuchar la versión en español, puede usar el link de YouTube que se le incluyó en la descripción de esta publicación en Facebook. Gracias.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, let's start with Kevin Fixler of the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat. Kevin?
Good evening, everyone. Paul, this actually is a question for you and perhaps open space or regional parks, but I was curious if there have been any damage estimates made with regard to either Hood Mountain or some of the other regional parks at this point.
Go ahead.
And I'm Paul, I'm prepared to answer that. The devastation of Hood Mountain is almost 100%. The devastation of Saddle Mountain, Ag and Open Space District, almost 100%. Sugarloaf, pretty significantly damaged. We don't have damage estimates yet, but park personnel are going up into the parks, especially Hood Mountain, to review what kind of damages have accrued. So far, the campground and the facilities at Sugarloaf are intact, but as you saw, we have very active high flames going through Sugarloaf. As we said before, it's staggering to me that we still have places in Sonoma Valley that were untouched by the 2017 fires. But indeed, these fires found them. So the McCormick addition up at the top of Los Alamos Road is really devastated, with high damage estimates to reopen the park at that location. And I think the damage estimates will come out soon, but we still have active fires. So it's a little too early for parks personnel to get in there. And I hope that at some point we could include parks personnel and the Icon Open Space on, and perhaps the partners, Team Sugarloaf, in a discussion about the devastation that they are seeing in our parks.
Thank you, Susan.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair Gorin. We have one question from a viewer. Anne asks, do we anticipate lifting any more evacuation orders for areas that are now under control? Chief Nichols, you want to take that one?
Sure, Paul. So at this point, with the red flag that we're under, citizens can expect to have no change in the evacuation warnings and orders. If anything, we may have to put additional orders into play, but that's going to be driven by fire conditions as they occur. With the fire activity in Calistoga, the Mark West drainage evacuation warnings will remain in effect for the period of the red flag for sure.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Let's go to Julie Johnson. Julie.
Hi there, thank you. I am working on a story about the investigation into the fire's cause. So for Chief Nichols, I'm hoping, one, you can address whether there might be separate investigations for the fire starts in Sonoma County. It seems fairly clear how they started, but is that part of the process? And then two, if there's a cause, and what you can say about how these investigations work.
So Julie, excellent questions. The cause of the fire is and will remain under investigation for some time to come. However, all fires in the state responsibility area, CAL FIRE investigates each fire individually. As just because the fires took place during the same period of time, we want to make sure that it is indeed attached to the main cause of the fire and not another source of another ignition. So all the fires, all of the origins will be looked at to determine what the ignition was for the individual fires.
Thank you. And if you might also address my question about what, can you say just a couple things about what it entails?
Sure. So our investigators, just like the lightning fires, when the lightning series came through, each of those origins for the fires across the county were searched out by our investigators using a methodical process to determine a origin area. And then once that origin area has been located, then it's analyzed and evaluated to determine what in that area could have caused the fire, and through a process of elimination and facts gathered at scene, the cause is then determined.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Let's go to Will Schmidt. Will?
Okay, Paul, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
You're good. We hear you. Thanks.
Okay, great. This one again is for the fire chiefs. Even though a lot of the activity we're hearing about seems to be on the Napa side of it, especially up near Angwin and St. Helena, my understanding is, and from what you guys have been saying, there are still some active fires and some hotspots definitely on the southern end. So given that information, what kind of a test on your defensive preparations in the Annandale, Sugarloaf, and near Kenwood and Glen Ellen areas are you expecting tonight? And what are some of the signs, or what are you going to be looking for on that southern front tonight to gauge whether your efforts have been successful?
So the gauge on whether or not those efforts are successful is whether or not the fire maintains inside of our existing control lines. So the winds just a couple minutes ago before the call started, we're currently blowing at the Hawkeye remote automated weather station up above Geyserville, Healdsburg. And so those winds are coming into the area as forecasted at elevation. And so our crews will remain vigilant on the lines to monitor any hot spots and to quickly knock them down and extinguish them when they're found close to the line, and ensure that any spot fires or slop overs out of the main fire are picked up as small as possible to keep the fire in the footprint that it is. So those crews will be at a heightened state of alert through the night, through the red flag event, to ensure that that fire is held in check and any escape is rapidly engaged and hopefully caught before it extends beyond a point where we can control it in a small footprint.
So even with no evacuation order or warning formally issued for Kenwood or Glen Ellen at this time, is it fair to expect them to have to stay kind of on notice, residents there, until the red flag has passed?
Yes, based on the weather conditions we have and the state of the line, if you go back to the Wallbridge fire, obviously that was a month-long process before we were at a point where we could call that fire the containment that it is, the 98% contained that it is today. So we're less than a week into this fire, and there's a lot of work left to be done. So we would like to have more mop-up prior to getting wind tested, but we're at where we're at, so we're going to make sure that we're ready for anything with the conditions that we're given.
Okay, thank you. One follow-up on that, if I may, Paul. This is for Sergeant Valencia.
Yeah, we're having a hard time hearing you, Will. If you could just move a little closer, that'd be great.
Sure. One follow-up here for Sergeant Valencia, I guess. Are there any other parts of the county that could expect to have evacuation orders or warnings overnight or tonight?
I think that really depends on the weather, and we work closely with CAL FIRE. So if the weather does start pushing that fire south, then yeah, it's the possibility, and that's why we're telling people to have bags ready. It all depends on the weather.
Thanks, folks.
So we have been just getting some questions from residents wanting to know how they can show their support for firefighters and our police officers and deputies who are out on the front lines. Unfortunately, I believe Jonathan Cox had to jump off, but I know he had expressed some ideas earlier, and I know he had a caution that there was some concern about some people claiming to be raising funds for firefighters support and trying to gather food donations or whatnot. And I know he was expressing caution that you do not raise, there are no efforts out there that are condoned to raise money for firefighters. Would some of you like to address that? Chief Gosner, would you like to speak to that issue? How best can people show their appreciation, I guess is the question.
The best way is to create a card or a sign or, something that you can put on the side of the road. Just a simple thank you. We really do appreciate that. And please don't forget law enforcement. They're a big part of this as well as every other county and city worker, right? There's a lot of that makes this happen. So we, cards and signs are very thoughtful, and we do appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you definitely see more cards and signs out there, and people do really appreciate all the work you're doing. So thank you. Let's go to Rafael Vasquez. Rafael?
Thank you for that, Rafael Vasquez, KBBF. This is for the supervisors. During the fires of August, we found out recently that there were 300 requests to allow workers and companies in the vineyards to allow workers to go and harvest the grapes while residents in those same areas had been told to leave those areas. Is there a specific reason why the county is either changing a policy, or what has led to the change of policy that is putting farm workers at risk during these challenging times?
Well, having navigated through the really horrible air today, I absolutely have incredible empathy for anyone working outside, whether it's our farm workers or the folks from the utilities who are replacing poles and stringing lines. More often than not, I see folks out there not wearing masks, and I know that Supervisor Zane would probably want to comment on that. You're right. This fire, I think the vineyards are now recognizing that the fruit on the vines are just going to be left to rot. They're smoke tainted, and the harvest is mostly completed now, thankfully. But we have worked with the agricultural commissioner to get some workers in there to complete the fermentation process and the crush as it's moved forward. It's mostly indoor work, and there are fewer wineries affected in Sonoma Valley than there certainly were around the Walbridge fire. But you're right, I absolutely have incredible empathy for the vineyard workers and the farm workers. But I know that oftentimes they want to keep their jobs, and obviously it's a huge part of our economy. We're going to have to grapple with this because fires this time of year are going to be part of our economy and certainly part of our living in the next year. So point taken, and I have a great deal of empathy for what you are talking about.
If I may,
Supervisor
Paul.
Rabbit? Yeah.
No, thank you. Raphael mentioned that there's a change in policy. There's not. This policy has been in place since the first fire in 17. And quite frankly, if you own a dairy in a fire evacuation zone, someone needs to care and feed and water and milk the cows. It's not that much different. Every agricultural zone, the fires do not stop the work that needs to be done. What we have in place is a safe and orderly process to make sure that we understand that it's a true agricultural need to go in, and then that's cross-verified with our working with closely with our sheriff, and certainly they work with CAL FIRE and all of our fire entities to make sure that anyone who goes into those zones is in an area that is safe. So that's the number one priority. The air quality is really always going to be an issue. In fact, we had worst air quality post-evacuation from the Walbridge fire, and people were in those zones with worst air quality. Had nothing to do with the ag access issues, but that also is really an OSHA issue, and we know that the employers and employees alike are working through that as well. So I just thought I would mention that. Thank you, Paul.
Can I add a little bit to that about the air quality? So the AQI, which stands for Air Quality Index today, was about 400, which is very, very dangerous. I noticed a lot of people that do landscape work are out there, and they have masks on, but it's still not safe for them to be out there. And Spare the Air Days have a lot of restrictions in terms of what you can use and what you can't. And I don't know if CAL FIRE or our fire chiefs want to add to that in terms of what you can and can't use during a red flag alert. But we as residents need to be mindful of that. Thank you.
Supervisor Zane brings up a very important item of discussion that I've said it before and I'll say it again, that 99% of the fires in Sonoma County are caused by humans. So we ask, we plead, we beg the public that they don't do anything that they don't have to do during this red flag that may spark a wildland fire. Now is not the time to mow. Now is not the time to operate mechanical equipment in the natural vegetation if you can avoid it. We ask everybody to do their part so we don't have another major fire.
Thank you. If I may just ask a follow-up to that, then, is there a specific person we should be contacting in order to get a copy of the current policy on, again, farm workers being either allowed or required to work under these conditions without N95 masks?
Raphael, this is Paul Gullickson. I'm happy to help you get information about those certifications, which allow farmers, property owners to go back in ag areas in times like this. And I'm happy to help you with that information. So let's touch base after our briefing, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, we are going to wrap this up. We want to thank you all again for joining us. I want to thank in particular Rosa and Melissa, our technical producers today, and as well as Lorna, our Spanish interpreter, and Rachel and Jennifer, our ASL interpreters. We also thank our public information partners, again, for at the City of Santa Rosa and at CAL FIRE for helping organize this joint news conference. For another update on the glass fire, we encourage you to tune in to the CAL FIRE media briefing tomorrow at 11 o'clock. It will be back at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Today it was moved primarily for the special visit by the governor today. And we will be streaming that briefing live on the County of Sonoma Facebook page. We also invite you to rejoin us tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another media briefing with our partners in Santa Rosa and CAL FIRE. And Dr. Sundari Mace, our Sonoma County's health director, will be joining us again at that time to give us an update on our COVID-19 numbers and also update us on where we stand with our school waivers. She had said she was going to do that this week. So until then, we encourage you all to stay safe, stay alert, and stay positive. We will get through this. Thank you. Thank you all.